And we did approach this with the least amount of force, spent the better part of the day talking with everybody. Let's move along, let's move along.
Tonight, police in Toronto evict the homeless from their camp, but not without a fight.
These hundreds of thousands of people that call themselves Métis, simply because they have some Indian ancestry. They are not part of our history. They're not part of us.
A breakaway Métis organization forms in Alberta with the blessing of the National Council's president. And from chasing pucks to chasing talent, Bridget Laquette joins the NHL Chicago Blackhawks organization as a scout.
Good evening, I'm Dennis Ward. Welcome to APTN National News. A camp for homeless people in Toronto was forcibly cleared out yesterday by city workers and Toronto police. But not before a violent clash between police and protesters, and many people are upset with how the situation was handled. With more, here's Daryl Stranger.
This was the scene yesterday at a homeless encampment in Toronto's West End at Lamport Stadium. City officials and police were enforcing trespass notices that were issued on June 12th. Toronto police said they wanted to be as peaceful as possible and not see anybody get hurt.
We did approach this with the least amount of force, spent the better part of the day talking with everybody. Let's move along, let's move along. We do our best to get to a place where nobody gets hurt and where we don't have to be physically fighting with people, but you were all witness to how we had to get to that place today.
In Winnipeg, one advocate expressed distress at the events that took place.
It's very sad and distressing to see that kind of action taken against people who are already experiencing a lot of harm and violence in their life due to not being able to claim their basic human right to housing.
In a statement, the City of Toronto said it was their decision to enforce the trespass notice, and police were present to support city staff. The city's objective today was to peacefully encourage encampment occupants to accept safe indoor accommodation, as it does daily with people experiencing homelessness across the city. Camping in parks is unhealthy, unsafe, and illegal. As protesters remained in the area and refused to leave, the city requested TPS assistance in clearing the fenced area of the park. In Winnipeg, organizations and the city take a rights-based approach to encampments that emphasize not using police force.
This process reduces police interactions with residents of encampments and increases trained and peer outreach supports. And those trained and peer outreach workers is the first point of contact for people that are in encampments, relying on first responders and police only in emergency situations.
Clemens hopes that in the future people won't have to be in homeless camps and that homelessness will end.
If we're able to provide people with the types of housing and supports that they need, and we're able to advance the right to housing, then we would not have this crisis of encampments and human suffering in our cities.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
To the weather situation now, and there's no rest for the 3,000 firefighters battling about 300 wildfires currently burning across British Columbia. Another challenging day lies ahead as hot, dry conditions persist. Another 100 firefighters from Mexico are due to arrive in the province this weekend. The federal government is also sending 350 Canadian Armed Forces members. Crews have also been facing strong winds.
Our weather system is expected to, impact direction and spread of current wildfires and potentially could result in some rapid fire growth. And while things may be looking favorable at this time, that could change within an instant.
We have all of the resources we need on the ground. Of course, if we had more, we would take them, that being firefighters from other jurisdictions. We have Quebec firefighters on the ground now, New Brunswick on the way. 100 Mexican firefighters who we depend on annually are on their way.
Now over to Northern Ontario, where more than 100 forest fires are burning, prompting new evacuation orders. 5 First Nation communities have been forced to leave their homes due to nearby wildfires. Residents from North Spirit Lake and Cat Lake First Nation are the latest to be under evacuation orders. About 100 people from the North Spirit Lake First Nation are traveling more than 900 kilometers to Sault Ste. Marie. The mayor of Sault Ste. Marie says a number of resources are available to help evacuees.
We met them at the airport yesterday. We had a team of health professionals at the hotel ready to meet them there. We had city buses at the airport. We really got them off the plane, onto the city buses, over to the hotel, and they met with our staff at the hotel and partners across our community. And I want to recognize the great collaboration across the community. We have really significant support from the healthcare community, from the Indigenous Friendship Center here in Sault Ste. Marie, which is taking a lead role. And I want to recognize Saskatchewan First Nation and Garden River First Nation, who are also supporting us and participating, making sure that we're doing this properly.
There are currently 180 wildfires burning across Ontario. 84 of them are considered out of control. To Manitoba now, where the Canadian Armed Forces will also help battle the wildfires, and more people have been forced to flee their homes.
Community there was the worst there because it was on both sides of the roads, right? And all you could see was just orange and thick black smoke. So it was pretty terrifying.
5 First Nation communities have been evacuated. In all, 2,000 people are displaced. More than 130 wildfires are burning across Manitoba. The CAF says up to 120 members with special training will arrive in the province tomorrow. Well, as those people in 5 First Nations in Manitoba flee the fires, they've left behind their pets. It's heartbreaking reality for many evacuees. Community leaders asked a Winnipeg pet rescue organization to bring food and water, but also to evacuate those pets who are the oldest and the youngest. They run on volunteers and donations, and they need help. Melanie Chuddick is a clinic coordinator at Manitoba Animal Alliance, and she joins us now. Melanie, thanks for being with us. What are you hearing about people who had to leave their pets behind?
We're hearing that people are devastated that they were made to leave their communities, and in like every situation that we've heard so far, the animals have been left behind. For example, Community Poongasi has had everybody leave, but the animals were left to fend for themselves. It has been over 7 days now. Some have left upwards of 10 days ago, and these animals are in peril. So people are very concerned about their fur babies.
How challenging is it for you and your team to get supplies in there?
Right now, the biggest challenge is the smoke. So we have flown up as much food as we possibly can. We've actually emptied our storage unit twice now. So we emptied it 2 days ago and then again yesterday. We've sent up everything that we can, and we've had them flying into nearby communities if we can't get into a community due to the smoke. And and thankfully, because this awareness, we've brought some awareness to the situation. We've actually had a company that we're working with currently who has offered us a helicopter to fly into Poongasi, where there is literally no humans right now, just animals. So we're going up there to bring some supplies so that we can feed and water animals, take out any animals that need any medical care.
How many animals are we talking about here?
We suspect it's upwards of 200 animals that we know that are most likely owned pets, plus there's most likely more than that because there are animals that are maybe living in the community that aren't necessarily owned or claimed by anybody. So there's 200 approximately owned plus those community dogs.
So Melanie, how can people help out here?
If people want to help, they can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We are posting stories regularly from our volunteers who are in those communities and volunteers sending help to those communities and taking dogs off planes as they've arrived here. They can go on ManitobaAnimalAlliance.com and they can view what's happening in the moment. They can see the need for the donations. Right now, our big push is we need to get more food because we have sent up everything we have. So every day we are cleaning out what we have. We're sending it to the northern communities so that animals can be fed and watered.
Well, Melanie, thanks so much for taking some time for us here today and for the work that you guys are doing. Hope some people get in touch in the coming days.
Thank you.
And now to Saskatchewan, where weeks of hot and dry weather has caused the worst drought in decades. And as a result, food producers are going to great lengths to salvage what they can. The province has announced some measures to help support farmers, but NDP leader Ryan Miley says more action is needed.
We heard a cry for help from the federal government, from the provincial government, to get to work right now on a substantial relief program, to sit down with the agricultural producers, the livestock producers, the grain producers, and understand the urgency of the need when it comes to feed, when it comes to water, when it comes to the financial means to make it through this crisis.
Miley says farmers stood strong during the pandemic and they need assistance from all levels of government. It's been 100 years since the last numbered treaty was signed. Our reporter Charlotte Moore Jacobs just came back from the shores of Great Bear River in the Northwest Territories to take a closer look at Treaty 11 history and commemoration. Here's a preview of that story.
It's a time of reflection and commemoration for the Sottugatnedene.
A lot of people are already looking to Delaney.
To mark the historic 100th year anniversary of the signing of Treaty 11.
We were there for thousands and thousands of years, like our ancestors are buried all around.
Lemuria Trail. This is where he did all his work.
Join us as we hear from the people impacted by broken promises, from what was supposed to be a nation-to-nation relationship.
When the white men come down the river, we're not to war on them. We're supposed to make them feel welcome and come down the river as a friendship.
And celebrate the resiliency of Indigenous people who call this land Saskatchewan, home. That's coming up soon on APTN National News.
Welcome back. As more communities across the country are preparing to use ground-penetrating radar technology to search for unmarked graves, the Kamloops to Secwepemc shared their experience with GPR through a webinar. 215 unmarked graves were found at the Kamloops Residential School in May. The presentation focused on best practices in grave detection and was open to all First Nations, Métis and Inuit communities who plan on searching for unmarked graves. The webinar connected communities with the Kamloops leadership and radar specialists who can help them prepare for their own searches while incorporating traditional practices. It was 2 years ago that 7 Métis communities broke away from the Métis Nation of Alberta and formed their own organization, the Alberta Métis Federation. Earlier this week, the Manitoba Métis Federation signed a memorandum of understanding with the new organization. Leaders say the agreement will help the Alberta Métis Federation. APTN's Chris Stewart has more.
It's a new type of governance.
The press conference was about a new partnership. But lurking in the background is a feud with the Métis Nation of Ontario. Manitoba Métis Federation President David Chartrand says Ontario is admitting communities who aren't Métis.
Unanimous 3,000 leaders from all across the province saying one thing very clearly: if Ontario ever brings in those people that are not us into our Métis National Council, into our nation, MMF will relieve himself and leave the MNC.
Something that MNC President Clem Chartier says threatens the Métis Nation as a whole.
And now we have this great threat from the east, these hundreds of thousands of people that call themselves Métis simply because they have some Indian ancestry. They are not part of our history. They're not part of us.
Leaders say a lack of consultation and funds led 7 Métis communities to form the Alberta Métis Federation 2 years ago. But as chairperson Diane Scoville says, the new organization needs funding, which an MOU with the MMF will help with.
Our goals are to share resources, energy, and to work together to present a stronger and more united voice on various issues to help the Métis people in Alberta, Manitoba, and elsewhere
Chartrand says the MOU will allow his organization to offer assistance.
But it's a hard road. It's a struggling road, especially when you know you have little funds and they have limited funds and they're not getting new support from the Métis Nation of Alberta, so they've got to fend for themselves. But now they have a big government like the Métis Federation and a real government that'll sit down and work with them hand in hand to ensure we have the consultants, we have the proper lawyers, we have the proper infrastructure to help them.
The deep divide revealed itself over the issue of COVID funding. Chartrand accused the Métis Nation of Alberta of refusing to provide COVID assistance to the Alberta Métis Federation. So his government provided $100,000.
And what does this province do? I'm talking about Métis Nation of Alberta. They said, I'm not serving you, you're not our members. You're not in my club. The COVID money is only for my members. That's not what Canada's agreement says. It's for all Métis. So when they did that to your people, that was, to me, criminal in some ways, a human rights infraction in some ways, and I believe you should take them to the Human Rights Tribunal.
Métis Nation of Alberta President Audrey Portra disputes Chartrand's claims.
Well, first, I think he needs to get his story straight. Of course, we received money from the federal government to provide COVID relief to Métis citizens all across Alberta, and we have done that. And I believe it was because Canada recognized that the MNA is the democratic government for Métis people in Alberta. We have assisted people all across the province, including those 7 communities who were there, those 7 leaders who were there. They weren't necessarily representing the community because our money has gone out to all of our regions. So there's nothing criminal about what we've done. There's nothing about any human rights accusations of what we've done.
Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Turning now to the COVID-19 pandemic. In Nunavut and the Northwest Territories, there are no active cases. There are 66 active cases in the Yukon. Nunavut and NWT have recently relaxed self-isolation requirements and limits on indoor gatherings. Masks are still mandatory in Nunavut. The Yukon will also be easing restrictions next month due to its high vaccination rate. On August 4th, people won't have to wear masks in indoor public spaces, and there will be no physical distancing at bars and restaurants. There will also be no self-isolation requirements when entering the territory, regardless of vaccination status.
That will mean all the remaining restrictions introduced under the Civil Emergency Measures Act will be lifted, and we can truly begin to move on from this life-changing pandemic.
Mary Simon will be installed as Governor General on Monday of next week. She is the first Indigenous person to be appointed to the role and the first Enoch. The ceremony will feature the lighting of a kulak and a performance by Inuit artist Ilasapi. Her appointment has been celebrated by many, but some say her lack of knowledge of the French language is a problem, though she is bilingual, fluent in Inuktitut. In fact, the Office of the Commissioner of Official Languages is investigating her lack of French. APTN News will be there to cover the ceremony and all of the reaction. One of the most celebrated First Nations hockey players got a new job today. Details on that coming up after the break. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. This is a picture of Tess Potts taking in the scenic sunset with her horse Fritz in the Okanagan Valley. That's quite a sky. Thanks for sharing with us, Tess. You can submit a photo for our photo of the day by sending your photos to share@aptn.ca, and then tune in each day to see if your photo is our next photo of the day. Time now to take a look at tomorrow's weather forecast. Starting on the east coast, 17 with showers in St. John's, 21 and rain in Halifax, 15 in Nain, 14 Cartwright, 27 with rain for Montreal, 25 in Chibougamau, 30 with showers for Sault Ste. Marie, sunny, and 26 in North Bay, 26 with rain for Thunder Bay and Sioux Lookout, showers and 24 in God's Lake, 25 with rain in Churchill, rain and 27 for Winnipeg, Brandon, and Dauphin. 27 for Regina, 25 in Saskatoon and North Battleford, 22 in Meadow Lake, 19 with rain in La Ronge. In northern Alberta, 17 with showers in Fort McMurray, 22 and sunny in Grand Prairie. 23 with the sun out in Edmonton, showers, and 25 for Lethbridge. Rain and 23 for Vancouver, 29 and sunny in Kamloops. 20 in Prince George, 16 with rain for Dease Lake. 23 in Old Crow, 21 with showers for Whitehorse. Rain and 22 in Yellowknife, sunny and 24 for Norman Wells. 10 in Sax Harbor, 14 in Pawlatuck. Rain and 15 in Arviette, showers and 10 for Chesterfield. 12 in Resolute, rain and 5 in Joe Haven. The official start of the Tokyo Summer Games is tomorrow. The opening ceremony in Tokyo comes as Tokyo is seeing another spike in COVID-19 infections, which surpassed a 6-month high on Wednesday. The host city logged more than 1,800 new cases 2 days before the start of the Games, and experts warn the situation will likely worsen. Tokyo is currently under its 4th state of emergency, which will last until August 22nd, covering the entire duration of the Games. Earlier today, Jules Boykoff, who has written a number of books about the Olympics and is a major critic of the Games amid a pandemic, he says the Games should not be held until the pandemic is under control.
I think that it's time to slow the roll, think global public health, and more than just having a sporting spectacle. As much as the athletes are amazing and bring much joy to a lot of people around the world, we don't yet know the long-term health repercussions for them. So yes, I believe in short that now is not the time to hold a spectacle like this. We need to slow down and focus on global public health, maybe come around to it later.
Going to be an interesting couple of weeks. Well, the Chicago Blackhawks have made a significant addition to their scouting staff, adding Canadian hockey player Bridget Lacquette as a pro scout in the organization. The Canadian hockey player is from Mallard, Manitoba, and Cote First Nation in Saskatchewan. Lacquette became the first First Nations woman to play on Canada's Olympic hockey team in 2018. Along with the recent hiring as a pro scout, she will be an announcer for one of the Blackhawks picks in the upcoming NHL entry draft, which is set to take place Friday, July 23rd. I guess that's tomorrow. And a big congrats to her on that amazing role. That's all the time we have for your APTN National News for this Thursday. Of course, for news anytime, you can head over to our website. That's aptnnews.ca. And never miss a headline. Download that APTN News app. I'm Dennis Ward. Thanks for being with us tonight. Have a great night.